can't believe I'm saying this, but Clair Obscur Expedition 33 was just disqualified from the Indie Game Awards, and no, I'm not joking.
Clair Obscur Expedition 33 did in fact use generative AI in their development of the game.
Are revoking their wins due to this AI controversy.
The Indie Game Awards, which just had their show earlier this month, has now disqualified Clair Obscur Expedition 33 because of its use of Gen AI.
Alright, let's stop for a moment and take a deep breath. Because I have the feeling that a new buzzword has just appeared in game development. One that automatically, especially in the United States, shuts off people's ability to think. That word, of course, is AI. AI sports, it's in the game. After the Game Awards, many players started spreading the theory that I haven't seen a single gameplay clip from Expedition 33, therefore this game is bad. You'll probably agree that this statement makes absolutely no sense, especially since I hadn't seen a single gameplay clip from either Elden Ring or Sekiro, despite having spent a ridiculous amount of time playing both. So I guess by that logic we should also revoke the awards for those games. Hello from software, I will let you know where to send back the award. Okay, thanks. Now, however, under basically every TikTok related to Expedition 33, you can find a different type of comments. AI slop, AI generated game, and so on. It looks like the Expedition haters have simply switched to a new narrative, but I've been noticing this trend for quite some time now, so let's talk about it together. Let's get into the video. Today, all it takes is for a studio to say, yes, we used AI, even if it was only during early pre-production, for placeholders or brainstorming, and the internet reacts as if someone just announced that the next Witcher game will be written by a chatbot. Although, no, scratch that. When it comes to a series, a chatbot would probably do a better job than Netflix writers. It doesn't matter at what stage you use AI and for what purpose. Players will be angry simply because you used it at all. Without any self-reflection, without any thought, it's just blind hate. And in recent weeks, two very different companies found themselves caught in exactly this fire, connected by one common denominator: publicly admitting that AI appeared anywhere in their production pipeline. On one side we have Larian Studios, the creators of Baldur's Gate 3. One of the most critically acclaimed games of recent years. Just a few weeks ago people were praising how incredible this game was, only to now angrily bring up AI whenever any news related to it appears. On the other side we have Sandfall Interactive, a small French studio responsible for Clair Obscur Expedition 33, a game that completely unexpectedly swept a massive number of awards and caused a huge controversy along the way. The number of neurons dedicated to hating it could be measured as the number of haters multiplied by 2. Let's start with Larian, because the narrative here became exceptionally absurd. The whole story began with a Bloomberg article describing internal discussion at the studio about the use of generative AI during early work on a new project set in the Divinity universe. And one word here is absolutely crucial: early. This was not about AI writing dialogue for the game, and it was not about AI designing quests or characters. It was only about pre-production, exploring ideas, early sketches, rough texts that are later rewritten, refined, or thrown into the trash anyways. You really need to understand how creative process works. The easiest way to explain it is through the film storyboards. Storyboards sit somewhere between a scene description and the actual filmed shot. An artist quickly sketches what a frame might look like, so the team understands the vision. Game development works exactly the same way. Let's say I want to create an image of Gustav standing at the edge of the building with the Eiffel Tower visible in the background. I could draw it myself, which would probably take several hours, unless of course I would do it like this, or I could write a prompt and generate it using one of the models, achieving the same result in minutes, or even many results if I want. That image would never make it into the game, it would only be used as a visual reference, so artists roughly know what the scene should look like. But if you want to be the technological purist, be my guest. Stop using modern toilets. Do you know how much water they use? Better dig a hole in the ground and shit into it. Sven Vinke himself openly admitted that these tools provided no magical productivity boost. So there was no AI revolution, no replacement of people, no breakthrough. As I've already explained, AI is simply a tool for more convenient planning, not actual game creation. And normally this should be the end of the story, but the internet turned it into something completely different. Very quickly, a narrative about hypocrisy appeared. That Larian had previously been skeptical about AI, that the studio had joked about the technology, and now they were suddenly using it. At that point, the discussion stopped being about how AI was actually used and turned into a moral condemnation. And this is what really frustrates me about people. Ironically, many of them see the world in binary terms. I'm not entirely sure whether it's because they are stupid or because they are genuinely convinced they are right. So if you say that using AI in a game development is bad, meaning that AI is bad if used for the final product, you are never allowed to touch it in your own project, not even to schedule meetings or something. Or someone comments under my video that I got one fact wrong, therefore the entire video is untrustworthy, I should be cancelled, I should be deleted, I should delete my channel and never record again. It's hard for some people to grasp that using AI in certain aspects of the game development can have positive effects on the industry. It's much easier to just reject AI entirely and hate everything associated with this label. In short, you are not allowed to any of this because you were against some of it before. Vinke responded very directly, publicly, without PR fluff. He emphasized that Larian employs dozens of artists, including over 20 concept artists, and that replacing them with algorithms is absolutely not on the table. AI was compared to a search engine, an inspiration board, concept art books, basically a supporting tool, not a creator. Exactly what I mentioned earlier. A way to show what's in your head, not the final product. And one very important sentence was said, one that often gets lost in the discussion. Larian hires people for talent, not for their ability to do what machine suggests. Which is exactly how they always operated. And that makes perfect sense, because what good is someone who can write a great prompt that generates a nice looking scene? Anyone who's worked with AI knows it struggles immensely with generating consistent results, so good luck translating that into an actual game. I genuinely think that this type of AI usage by Larian Studios does not deserve the level of hate they received. But you know, that's just my opinion. You know, this correct one, the only correct one. And now we move to the second story, which is even more absurd. From the very beginning, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 was praised for its artistic style, painterly inspirations, European aesthetics and narrative. But at some point, the game's producer said in an interview something along the lines of, yeah, we used a little bit of AI, but only to a very limited extent. And that single sentence caused a tsunami. Suddenly, accusations started circulating online that the entire game was the AI slop, that the aesthetic was generated, that artists were replaced. I even came across a TikTok, I'm not kidding, where a guy openly claimed that the award for art direction should have gone to Hollow Knight Silksong. When you hear why, it will blow your mind. Players noticed a few elements in the game that looked like temporary textures, placeholders, and bingo, the narrative was ready. Do you know what those elements were? For example, this information pillar. Can you believe that players were ready to label the entire game as AI slot because of some random informational pillar that had an AI generated graphic? Sandfall explained that these were temporary assets that were quickly removed, that they were never meant to ship in the final version, and that things like this happen all the time in game development. But once you put the word AI on the internet, explanations stop mattering. But this makes perfect sense if you understand how game testing actually works. If you imagine testers' job as playing a finished game, you're seriously mistaken. Often testing looks like launching a game on a fridge. All textures merely pretend to look like a final thing and you spend hours staring at the blocky cylinder That's supposed to represent, I don't know, an information pillar? That's exactly why developers sometimes generate such objects, to make them resemble a finished product. Later, they are swapped out, unless they are insignificant enough, like, I don't know, let's say, information pillar? Then the asset might simply be forgotten or lost. And just like that, the game gets labeled as AI made because someone forgot to replace a placeholder. Very logical. The situation completely spiraled out of control after the Game Awards, where Expedition 33 won 9 awards, including Game of the Year. And that's when the narrative shifted from "did they use AI?" or "I didn't see gameplay so the game was bad" to "they won because they used AI." Not because the game was well written, not because the game had great music, not because a small studio made something ambitious. No, because AI. And fuck it. Sandfall repeatedly emphasized that no AI-generated elements made it into the final game, and the project director outright said that in creative matters, the answer is no, AI did not create this game, essentially repeating exactly what Larian said. But the absurdity reached such a level that 6-1 Indie, so the Indie Awards, disqualified the game as an indie title due to AI usage. I have just one question. How will they ever recover from that? And that brings us to the core issue. Neither of these stories is really about Larian or Expedition 33. They're about the fact that the games industry currently has no room for nuance when it comes to AI. You're either pure or guilty. Either you don't use AI at all, or you're a fraud. In my recent video about AI in Arc Raiders, see, I learned. I mentioned that the developers were criticized for using text-to-speech with actors they actually paid. And there are countless similar cases where AI is portrayed as the main villain. And the truth, as usual, is far less exciting. AI is becoming just another tool in production pipelines, just like motion capture, procedural generation, photogrammetry, or pre-made assets once were. There's even that one thing from Epic Games called like Metaverse, where you can create a person without even modeling it, without even knowing 3D modeling. And you could say that people are losing job over it, so maybe we should reject all of these inventions and start to write games again in assembler. That's fun. The question isn't whether AI will be used, but how, where, and with what level of transparency. Because yes, there are situations where AI replaces artists' final work, and that's not okay. And of course, companies should feel pressure from players to not use AI in their final products. But crying because some pillar had an AI asset? That's a bit too much. And if we treat every mention of AI experimentation as a betrayal of game development ideals, we'll quickly stop talking about games altogether and only talk about who morally condemned whom in the comments. And that's not the debate anymore, that's just another internet drama. The reality is that just under 20% of games released on Steam in 2025 used generative AI, and that number will only grow, so it's worth defining clear boundaries now as to what level of AI usage is acceptable. And I think that it should be done by people who really love video games and not people who love Excel spreadsheets. In my opinion, the way Larian, Sandfall and even Embark operated still falls within a range that absolutely does not deserve this level of player backlash. And I'll tell you a secret as a person who works with AI daily. It takes intelligence to use artificial intelligence. AI can lie, deceive, hallucinate, and it's up to you to verify this data. That's why I personally believe and hope that the AI bubble will eventually burst, especially once AI starts being trained on AI-generated sources, which will eventually happen. A self-feeding loop of destruction. Until then, let's use AI as best as we can to support the creative process, not replace it. I hope you got something out of this video, and thank you very much for watching, I really appreciate that. And I'm really curious about your opinions on generative AI in games, so the comments are yours and likes are mine. Leave one up and make sure to watch my video about AI in Arc Raiders if you didn't do it yet. Thanks a lot and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, bye bye.